Hi everyone, and welcome back to Meerkat Musings. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, which I apologise for neglecting over the last year, I guess. I don't know. It feels like it's been ages since I've done one of these. It has been ages since I've done one of these, and I'm using this video to just announce a few bits and pieces of progress on my book, The Awakening, which you may recall if you follow me through any other social media sort of channel, as it were, Twitter, my website, whatever. I pulled it from being published because I ended up with a deal with a publishing house. Jumpmaster Press, great people. They've been very helpful. They've given me some great feedback. And as part of the process to getting the book published with them, I went back and at their kind of behest, if you like, made some changes. So I made some edits to, not necessarily to the story as such, but more to how it was written. Although there are some new details in terms of the story itself, and I think a few things now make more sense and a bit more natural, I guess, is the word I'm looking for there. So a few changes along those lines, which will hopefully yield a stronger book. It's now back in the hands of the publisher. They will go over what I've done. They will probably come back to me with more ideas for how to edit the book. But hopefully, with each kind of revision, if you like, my hope, my belief is that the narrative gets tighter and stronger. The amount of work would hopefully sort of shrink, as it were, in that respect. And then we move on to things like, among other things, cover art, which is a bit of a sort of thing in the future, but I have a few ideas around that. And from there, we get into the stage where we can publish. And from there, the thing that I'm pondering and the thing I haven't really been able to work out yet. So Jumpmaster Press is a US publisher, US publisher, and I'm in the UK. My aim, my hope, my ambition is to see my book in UK bookstores. I don't know how feasible that is. I don't know what with even if I had a UK publisher, how feasible that would be. But that's certainly the hope. Is to get it into. There's a couple of places. I'm not going to name sort of venues, but there's a few major high-profile sci-fi stores in the UK. There's one in London, which is huge, and I'd feel honoured if they were to stock my book. But it's not down to me. It's down to, I guess, arranging something between myself, my publisher, and the bookstore that everyone's happy with. And I don't know how we'd make that work. I don't know. Such is the challenge of a transatlantic relationship, as it were. So we'll have to figure that one out between us. So I'm sure we will. And whatever happens, it's going to be part of Jumpmaster Press's portfolio. And it's the beginning of something. It's the beginning of something that, as I've kind of mentioned before, I'd never really expected. I'd always hoped and dreamed that I could get something in print somehow. I mean, I've dawdled with stories and fan fiction and things like that for years, but I never imagined I'd reach a point where a publisher would pick up something that I'd written and feel that it was good enough to explore more and to take further. I saw some stats the other day. Something like 97% of people who start to write a book never actually complete the entire process from start to finish. At various different points, they'll drop out, they'll back out from the idea. So I feel quite proud that I've managed to be one of that small minority of people that's pushed forward and made this work. things are a little bit different in the world of self-publishing, where you can write potentially anything you want, do very little to it after it's done, and just post it effectively. And you know what? I did do that with the Awakening original version of the Awakening. That was self-published. I did edit it, and I did actually seek some feedback, but that feedback, with the best will in the world, was from my brother, who you could argue would be a bit biased, maybe. Although, in fairness to him, he did a great job with some very honest feedback. But he's not a professional editor, and it was never going to be with my own ideas in play, the kind of process that you get from a publishing house. So here we are. We've actually managed to do this in the traditional sort of way. I have nothing against self-publishing. As I say, I used it briefly myself. I'd use it again, depending on the circumstances. It's a worthwhile means of getting something out there. The trouble with self-publishing is, because everyone can do it, it also means the market gets saturated very, very quickly. There are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of new books across various genres being uploaded to Amazon every single day. How do you make your product stand out in those circumstances? The answer is you can't, at least not easily. Not without being prepared to spend a fair bit of money through like Amazon's like marketing tools, or with third party marketing tools, and sometimes you don't have the money to do that. But there are other challenges, of course, with publishers. You've got to understand they won't just accept anything. Publishing houses will get bombarded with all kinds of material on a daily basis, and they can't publish it all, even if they wanted to. They can't. There's too much work involved. So they have to be picky. They have to look at these things and evaluate what they feel is worth evaluating, and go from there. And of course, some publishers operate within certain niche markets. Jumpmaster Press, that I'm sort of working with, they are very much sci-fi and fantasy, which from my point of view is great, because A, I like to read a lot of sci-fi and fantasy, and B, it's what I've written. But would they be so interested in, one of the other things that I've written, more of a fan fiction thing really, but I might revisit it. I did write a story about ancient Rome that was inspired by the Spartacus TV series. That is a gory story, to put it mildly, about gladiators. And I don't know if it's the sort of thing that Jumpmaster Press would pick up. And if I'd thrown that at them, being predominantly sci-fi based, they'd probably turn around and say, this isn't for us. Which is fair enough. As I say, different publishers will often focus on different genres. It's one way of narrowing down the focus, and meaning that people don't sort of bombard them too much with stuff that they find to be irrelevant. So they almost have to do that. They almost have to be genre specific. But as I say, from my point of view, it's great. I was able to find them, and here we are. The first round of major edits is done. It's back in their hands. I hope they like it. I hope that whatever they sort of come back with feedback wise, that we can work together to tighten the story still further. That's the aim. And then go from there. And as I say, I hope with each new round of this process, the workload decreases, because we've already done the groundwork the last time around. Whether that'll be the case, I don't know. It's in their hands. I have to wait, which is only fair, because mine is not the only book in the queue. So I've got to wait for them to do what they need to do with other books before coming back around to mine. And then we'll see. We'll see what the feedback is, and then we'll just have to sort of go from there. But it's quite exciting, because I'm on the brink of something now that, as I say, I dabbled with writing stories. I never really thought I'd get this far. Lockdown back in 2020, it kind of gave me no excuse not to do this. I've told this story before, but this book began life in its original form in 2019, in the late summer, I think it was, of 2019. It began work as a bit of fan fiction, well, not even fan fiction, just amateur fiction, I guess, to put onto my website. And by the time I was finished with this, I thought to myself, especially when lockdown hit, why not go a step further with it, develop it into something else? So I did. I had the idea about sort of publishing it. I went down the self-publishing route. The publisher in question, they didn't tell me no when I first went to Jumpmaster Press. They told me, here are the things we'd like you to do in order to get a yes. And to me, that was brilliant because some publishers can be very brusque and very abrupt, and they will tell you quite plainly, we're not interested. I don't know how many of them are prepared to say, here's some advice, here's what we think you should do, and then come back to us. But you know what? I thought to myself, that's great on their part to give the advice willingly. And then, as I say, when I resubmitted it almost a year later, they were like, great, fantastic. We're going to take this on board. We're going to give you a contract, and we're going to publish this. And it will take a little while to get everything sort of tied up because, as I say, they work on other books. And there we go. And I'd like to think I'm in somewhat illustrious company as well. Uh, one of the one of the authors that works at this publisher is the actor who played Quark in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Forgive me, I'm not going to pronounce his name correctly here, and I know that. Armin Shimmerman, I believe, is how you pronounce his name. Apologies if that's wrong. But to be in that company is amazing, you know, and who knows where this might go. If it gets published, if it does even remotely well, one of my ambitions would be that this publishing house. This publishing house is based in a town called Birmingham in Alabama, in the USA. Not Birmingham up north in the Midlands of the UK, but Birmingham, Alabama, USA. And what I'd love to do is the opportunity to actually kind of what they do is they actually do like book tours at various sci-fi conventions. They have their own like sort of table and stand where they display their books and promote them and push them, along with, of course, an online presence, as everyone has these days. I'd love to have the chance to play a part in that. Naturally, that's well down the line. I can't, at the moment, afford to just jet off to Alabama on a whim. And it would be a far-flung future ambition. Some of it would depend on what the book can perhaps earn. But equally, what I'd love to try and do, as I said before, is get a presence in UK bookstores. I'd love to work with Jumpmaster Press to that kind of aim. Who knows? It might be of great benefit to both parties if that could happen. I don't know if that's feasible. I don't know if it's realistic, but the hope would be to do that. But I have to express once again my gratitude to Jumpmaster Press for their advice, for the opportunity they've given me, for being willing to take on this project of mine and to help me develop it into something that started out as somewhat dry, sort of fan fictiony type stuff into a more fleshed out universe and a more thoughtful story. I wouldn't have been able to do that without their help. And as I say, I'm very, very grateful to all their advice and for giving me this opportunity that 5 years ago I would never have seen this coming. They say every cloud has a silver lining. The whole lockdown and pandemic situation has been a real trial for everyone. The silver lining for me has no doubt been the opportunity to finish this book and to get this book published. So many thanks to the publisher, and I can't wait to see where the work goes next from here.